Crown cannot appeal a disagreement over the facts.
Tonight, there will be no appeal of the jury's not guilty verdict in the trial of Gerald Stanley.
Now, it's all about bringing our culture in and introducing that to the rugby culture also.
And Indigenous youth take up rugby while showing pride in their nations. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. Tonight, breaking news out of Saskatchewan. The Provincial Crown Prosecutor's Office says it will not appeal the not guilty verdict for the farmer accused of fatally shooting Colton Bushy. Last month, the jury acquitted Gerald Stanley of second-degree murder in the death of Bushy. The trial heard two stories: that Bushy was one of 5 people who were looking for help with a flat tire when they drove onto Stanley's farm. The other, that the occupants of the car Bushy was in were looking for trouble. Stanley testified he fired warning shots to scare the group, but one shot accidentally killed Bushy. Saskatchewan's senior Crown prosecutor says there has to be an error in law for an appeal to be filed.
The Crown cannot appeal a disagreement over the facts, the interpretation of witness evidence, or because a particular perspective leads to the opinion that the verdict was unreasonable. The Crown cannot appeal because some people have questions about how the investigation was done or what the lawyers did.
This morning, the lawyer for Bushy's family notified them a decision has been made. Bushy's uncle, Alvin Baptiste, says the family is upset with the Crown's decision.
They keep telling us to have faith in the justice system. How can we get faith when you get denied justice? When all Indigenous people, including my family, have been denied justice throughout the years, and that the law needs to change. They need to change the laws. The laws are no longer working for Indigenous people at all.
The RCMP in Whitehorse will be setting up a new investigative unit to work on cold cases of the murdered and missing in Yukon. Shirley McLean has more.
In recent years, Yukon's murder rate has leaped, with 8 homicides last year alone. Yukon Minister of Justice Tracy Ann McPhee says the historical case unit is needed to help with the unprecedented amount of killings in the territory.
What we hope that we will achieve here is efficient and effective investigations that will result in answers, for families, for them to be able to have peace of mind and know that the loss of their loved ones has been taken seriously and has been dealt with.
Since 2000, there have been 35 homicide investigations, with 12 remaining unsolved. Yukon's police had to rely on officers from the south to investigate some of the recent murders. The Kwalendon First Nation in Whitehorse is dealing with 5 unsolved murders alone since 2014. The most recent happened at the end of February, when 25-year-old Chelsea Teagan Bean from the Nation was killed in this Whitehorse apartment building. No arrests have been made. Chief Doris Bill, in a previous interview with APTN, said she was reluctant to criticize the RCMP.
The RCMP we understand, are swamped with these cases right now. They're going all out, trying to solve these cases. A big part of the problem with the historical cases is the lack of information coming forward. And we know that. We've known that for a long time. The RCMP have spoken publicly about this.
Last month, the Northwest Territories government earmarked $300,000 to fund a similar unit to help investigate 71 unsolved cases in their territory.
The purpose of
the government of Yukon is providing over $1 million over the next 3 years to fund the 3-person unit. The unit's mandate will also include investigations related to the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
One of the things we've been told by the RCMP is that there is in fact work to be done on these cases, and that we need to concentrate on that and go forward and try to solve them.
The unit is expected to be up and running by the summer. Shirley McLean, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
On Tuesday, the National Inquiry requested a 2-year extension and additional funds to complete its work. Today, Commissioner Kayak Robinson indicated what some of that extra time and money would be used for. She said the inquiry is preparing to consult with international human rights experts and that it is taking steps to reach homeless and incarcerated women as well as those in shelters.
We have developed some ideas and some partnerships with organizations such as the Elizabeth Fry Association. We've been in discussions with them to use their knowledge on how to best reach particularly women who are in custody.
And we would like to hear what you have to say about the extension or any other story. Here's how to contact us. Send an email to news@aptn.ca, like our APTN National News Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter @APTN News, or go to our website, aptnnews.ca. The Canadian Screen Awards recognize work in Canadian film, television, and digital media. Often compared to the Oscars, it's the most prominent awards given by the Academy of Canadian Cinema and Television. This year, there were many Indigenous nominees, including APTN. Beverly Andrews brings us the excitement of the evening.
The carpet is rolled out as nominees arrive at the 2018 Canadian Screen Awards Gala. Tonight is for honoring excellence in nonfiction programming.
Kind of honored, it's always nice to be recognized for your work.
APTN Investigates won Best News or Information segment for Cullen Crozer's piece Against Their Will, a story on the forced sterilization of Indigenous women in Saskatchewan.
This is one of those stories I think that just kind of flew under the radar of everybody that was out there, and I just felt that it hadn't really been told in the way it deserved. So I'm thrilled that it's been accepted the way it has.
APTN Investigates producers Holly Moore and Paul Barnsley were there every step of the way.
The remarkable thing about working with Investigates, I've been a journalist for a long time, but I've never seen this kind of passion put into these stories.
What Colin has done and Holly have done and the team has done, it was all worth it.
The Academy presents over 10 special awards to outstanding industry members. APTN's Executive Director of News and Current Affairs, Karen Pugliese, received the Gordon Sinclair Award.
I think we finally come to a place in Canada where Indigenous journalism is being recognized.
The award is presented to a broadcast journalist for the exceptional work in television journalism. Pugliese is the first Indigenous person to receive the Gordon Sinclair Award.
I think we've unlocked the floodgates to Indigenous journalists moving into the mainstream, and I hope one day that every station is reporting on Indigenous stories every day.
Awards in various film and television categories will be handed out all week, ending on Sunday with the broadcast gala. Beverly Andrews, APTN National News, Toronto.
A huge congrats to our colleagues on their awards. Time for a quick break, but then we'll look into relations between farmers and Indigenous peoples in Saskatchewan. Stick around. Here's a look at Thursday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. A rain-snow mix and +1 in Halifax and Fredericton. Sunny and -3 in Cartwright, -4 in Inukjuak. Snow and +1 in Montreal, -1 in Val-d'Or and Chibougamau, +1 in Windsor, Toronto, Peterborough and North Bay, -2 in Wawa and Thunder Bay, -3 in Kapuskasing. In Manitoba, -4 in Thompson, Flin Flon, The Paw and Norway House. -4s continue in Winnipeg and Barons River, where snow is on the way. Sunny skies across Saskatchewan, -7 in Regina and Yorkton, -3 on Thursday in Buffalo Narrows and Stony Rapids. Welcome back. The case of Colton Bushy sparked the conversation about racism across the country. Many reports and posts on social media show a poor relationship between farmers and Indigenous peoples. But that isn't always the case. Tamara Pimentel visited Little Pine First Nation in Saskatchewan, a community that relies on local farmers.
The community of Little Pine First Nation is about 1 hour away from Red Pheasant, home of Colton Bushy. It's surrounded by over 45 acres of its own farmland, most of it rented to local farmers.
We have a good working relationship with the farmers that farm our TLE land. You know, we built a great relationship over the past 25 years, and we're going to continue to do so.
Councillor Carl Kennedy says farmers and Little Pine benefit from one another. While the First Nation provides land, the farmers provide work for youth.
Those opportunities have opened up, you know, so hopefully maybe one of our young guys will get into farming or ranching, you know, and that comes from our tenants.
The Colton Bushy case took the nation by storm and sparked the conversation of racism across the country, which is why Kennedy says the acquittal of Gerald Stanley has Little Pine on guard.
If we're time traveling, I think we went back 100 years where things were more likely to happen like that. It's pretty sad that we have to protect ourselves from ourselves.
But some say reports by the media have created a negative image of Saskatchewan.
I would say it's maybe in areas, is there racism in Saskatchewan? Absolutely. But it's definitely not as bad as what the country and the media is turning it into.
Ryan, who doesn't want his last name revealed, is from the Facebook group Farmers with Firearms, a group created to help prevent rural crime in Saskatchewan.
We can all poke fingers at each other and blame a bunch of people, but somebody needs to realize we do have a problem. If everybody's so, gung-ho about changing things, well, then why not change that? We got to send our youth off. Like, we're all Canadians. Why can't we fix this problem together? Why can't we address it and fix it?
Kennedy says he wants this to be a lesson, a chance to build the relationship between farmers and Indigenous people.
Hopefully you can build a better relationship and get some more young guys working. Having that young guy lose his life after all this, let's hope it's not in vain. You know, let's learn something off it.
Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Little Pine First Nation.
Every year, hunters in Nunavut get to harvest one bowhead whale from each of Nunavut's 3 regions. And now we know this year is Iqaluit's turn. This was the scene last time Iqaluit received the bowhead hunt in 2011. This whale was longer than a school bus at 14 meters. The meat was shared in Iqaluit and other Baffin Island communities. It took a group of 20 hunters to bring the food back. And the Trappers Association is asking anyone in Iqaluit interested in taking part to contact them. The hunt will take place this August. The Wabano Centre for Aboriginal Health in Ottawa is one of 10 Indigenous centres across Ontario that provides medical, social services and programs. And with the help of a full-time volunteer, it now offers a pretty sweet project. Here's Annette Francis with more.
So we could put a little bit, we have to cool that down pretty fast. Yeah.
This group of volunteers are creating a new batch of fine chocolates. They're learning from Pirat Vesna, also known as Wabano's chocolatier. Vesna retired 10 years ago. She's been helping out at the center as a volunteer coordinator for the past 4 years.
I kept passing by Wabano and I kept seeing this organization. And it kept saying, Wabano's Center for Aboriginal Health, and it was calling to me. And then when I had some time, I decided now it's time to come in and check this out, And also, being Métis, I wanted to, help my community.
She started making chocolates as gifts to show her appreciation to all the volunteers at Wabano. They were such a hit that Vesna was soon teaching the skill to others, like Denise or Matier.
Oh, it's great because it gives me something to do. I'm on disability, so there's not a lot I can do. But it's relaxing, and you get to meet people, which is nice. And we all seem to work good together, and Pierrette is very easy to work with. She's always accommodating to what you can and cannot do.
The funds raised from this little chocolate factory now help to support other programs at Wabano.
We just shipped to Yukon, to the Yukon Council for First Nations. They tasted our chocolates at AFN, and they called up, can you ship it to us? And that's what we did. and we sent some to Vancouver also.
Vesna's recently been recognized for her volunteer work with a medal for good citizenship. It's Ontario's second highest civilian honour. Gina Metallic says the recognition is deserving, and they're grateful for all that she does. Metallic says her love shows in the details of her fine chocolates.
Through the boxing that she does and the teachings of the animals that she puts on. So even though we're making chocolates, and there's still always a cultural component to it, and I think that makes it so unique.
Vesna says last year Wabano's fine chocolates generated $4,000. This year she's hoping to double that number. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
It's been just over a year since the final raid at Standing Rock cleared out the camps. There's been plenty of talk about certain events being the next Standing Rock. But many of the people involved in the No DAPL movement say there will never be another Standing Rock. While residents from the area are still worried about what could happen with the pipelines going through their community, today we put the No DAPL movement and Standing Rock in focus. Here's some of the highlights of our panel discussion.
Standing Rock changed the world, and we, as members of our nations, as members of the global movement for Indigenous rights and climate justice, owe a debt to everybody who put their bodies on the line. In the same way that we owe a debt to those that participated in Oka and Gustafson Lake, in Wounded Knee, in the Longest Walk.
Right now, the fight is still on in the courtroom, and we're also about to launch a sovereignty campaign, a capital campaign, because we are not prepared for an oil spill right now. If the pipeline would break today, we would have about 4 days or 5 days of stored water. We could shut off our valves, but after that point, we're buying water.
Indigenous peoples are communicating, we're sharing resources, we are escalating against this neo-colonial form of colonization in our homelands brought to us by energy corporations working in collusion with governments.
I think people that had gathered at Standing Rock already had recognized the historical trauma that they brought with them that they didn't realize that they had, right? There was a real healing happening at the very time that this fight to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline from crossing the Missouri River was happening, and then compounded by that was a regurgitated play of this militarized force encroaching on Native people, on Native lands, and on Native rights.
Living on Standing Rock, that's where I grew up, but living there is suspenseful. It's like living in an undeclared water emergency because that pipeline carries 500,000 barrels of oil per day, and just 1%. We don't know what their leak detection systems are, but it's clear. I'm working with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe to help address this immediate and urgent emergency that would happen if the pipelines spill.
I think that what Standing Rock represents today for a lot of people too was this way to come heal, was a way for some people to arrive and get sober, was a way for people to connect to perhaps a sense of family that perhaps never existed from where their communities are. It was so much bigger than an environmentally led movement, which it started as.
And that whole conversation will be posted to our website shortly, aptnnews.ca. New sport is picking up steam on the East Coast and has now seen the formation of an all-Indigenous team to compete nationally. That story and more coming up after the break. Here's the rest of Thursday's weather outlook, picking back up in northern Alberta. -4 in High Level, -7 in Grand Prairie, -6 in Edmonton, -5 in Red Deer, -4 in Lethbridge. A wet day on the west coast, rain and +8 in Victoria, Vancouver, and Tofino. Sunny and +4 in Prince Rupert, +1 in Prince George and Smithers. In Yukon, -9 in Rock River, Mayo, and Beaver Creek. Over to NWT, -8 in Fort Liard and Fort Resolution, -9 in Fort Simpson, -19 in Sax Harbor, -11 in Inuvik, 17 below in Paulatuck. In Nunavut on Thursday, -15 in Whale Cove and Repulse Bay. A chilly -32 in Resolute, a mild -16 in Iqaluit. Welcome back. There's a new sport gaining traction in the Maritimes, where youth have formed the first all-Indigenous team to compete at a national level. Justin Brake has the story. A year ago, many of these players didn't know a thing about rugby. But since it was introduced to youth in Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey reserves in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, the sport is quickly gaining popularity.
So one of the hottest sports now played throughout the world is sevens rugby. So we thought, wow, what a great opportunity. All they would need is 7 players to actually play.
Jason Peters of Aboriginal Sport and Recreation New Brunswick proposed that Rugby Canada welcome its first Indigenous clubs, the Indigenous Spruce under-18 girls and boys teams.
They thought it was a great idea, so we will, as an Indigenous nation, we will be the only ones competing, against New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, and BC, Ontario. This isn't really a provincial team for us. I sort of consider this our Mi'kmaq and Maliseet national team.
Blake Edwards was recruited to visit reserves and introduce youth to the sport and to coach the teams.
We have about 24 girls now on the roster, and we have about 18 to 19 boys on the roster.
Being on an Indigenous team, playing against provincial teams is it's amazing.
Isaiah Solis is one of the team's senior players. He's looking forward to playing at the Nationals this week in Vancouver.
It's a great learning experience. I mean, playing at the highest level that you can in provincial, there's nothing better that you can get out of any kind of experience at all.
Carrie Sock and Sharona Wilcox say rugby was a perfect fit for them.
In hockey, I liked being rough, and I knew rugby was a really rough sport, and there was a lot of running involved, and it just seemed like something that'd be a lot of fun to me.
At first, I didn't know what I was doing, but I just went along with it, and once I got used to it, I find I was getting better each time.
Peters says the potential for rugby to grow in the region is huge.
Our goal was to put together a U18 men's and women's team for sevens rugby. Then it sort of exploded on us, where the numbers kept going. So we expect about 1,500 youth to be playing, Indigenous youth to be playing rugby by August of this year.
That's the greatest joy I have out of it, seeing kids walking off the field with a big smile on their face, or some beads of sweat coming down their face as well, knowing that they played a hard game, be it win or lose. They still had fun doing it, learning a new game, learning a new skill set.
It's all about bringing our culture in and introducing that to the rugby culture also, which is so important, because we're introducing an old sport to an ancient culture, to the Mi'kmaq and Maliseet.
This week, the Indigenous Spruce play in the Nationals. This summer, they head overseas to compete against teams in England, Ireland, and Wales. Next year, it's New Zealand. But it all began by putting a ball in the hands of the youth and giving them the opportunity. Justin Brake, APTN National News, East Hants, Nova Scotia. Some crushing hits there. Good luck overseas. That's your APTN National News for this Wednesday. For news anytime, including testimony from the National Inquiry today in Labrador and that full episode of today's In Focus on Standing Rock, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.